What's up, guys? Welcome to the very first world record speedrun here for Thug Life Gaming. Today, we're going to be breaking the record for the Halo 4 mission called Shutdown on Legendary difficulty. Now, this mission in particular is pretty popular among the Halo speedrun community, basically because it's the shortest mission in the entire Halo 4 campaign, which means it's been highly optimized, making it extremely difficult for me to do. But how this is going to work is I'm going to play through the entire run without commentary so that you guys can grasp a sense of what I will eventually be talking about. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you guys a step-by-step detailed tutorial on how to go about utilizing some of the tips and tricks that I used in order to break the record of 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So with that being the benchmark, let's go ahead and get things started and see how I do.
The Didact used this composer to create the Prometheans from ancient humans. If he wants to finish the job, he'll have to find it first. Our best bet to stop him is keep him firmly on Requiem. Let's hope Lasky didn't skimp on that Pelican. Initiating pre-flight diagnostics. Forward autocannon, check. Lateral rail turrets, check. Main thrusters, check. Auxiliary boosters, check. All right. Keying engine. It may be a while before we find another ride home. You know that, right?
It'll be okay.
Contact. Didact dead ahead.
How do we get inside those shields?
Marking 2 of the larger facilities on your HUD. They're acting as traffic control for resources moving to and from the satellite. If we disrupt their communications, I can forge an override code and convince it to lower those defenses. Tapping into this fire's central net. They're mine. Now to imprison them!
What are you doing?
I can't resist his Prometheus! Like Thunderbolts he imprisoned me!
Chief,
The ship's online. They're leaving.
I'm sorry. I don't know what...
Track those liches. We can go across them to get to the Didact ship.
Wait, across them?
Yes.
There are several liches moving in formation towards the Didac ship. We're only going to have one shot at this. Okay? Go!
So, as you guys can see, I finished the mission at 4 minutes and 9 seconds, which is 1 second faster than the previous world record. You can't imagine how hyped I was when I saw the number 9 on my screen. Dude, I started freaking out, running around my house, yelling. It was just fantastic. But before we move on, I do have to mention that I'm sure a number of you noticed the time of 4 minutes and 4 seconds on the right side of your screen. But that's actually with utilizing an in-game glitch that manipulates your timer. See, what happens is when you use this glitch, every time you hit a loading zone, it'll actually freeze your screen, but also that clock. So, although you finish a mission with what seems like a super fast time, what you don't realize is that you actually elongated your RTA time from start to finish because of the seconds that are spent in those frozen screens. So, with following speedrun regulation, I just wanted to clarify that, guys. But let's go ahead and get into the tutorial aspect of this video to showcase a few of those tips and tricks that I talked about earlier. The first thing that you're going to want to do is obviously get into the Pelican as fast as humanly possible. Now, the game is going to actually prompt you to get into this Pelican at exactly 18.5 seconds, as you saw right there. And you'll know that you timed it perfectly if your screen actually goes black when the in-game timer hits 33 in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll see that right here.
Boosters, check. All right, keying engine. It may be a while before we find another ride home. You know that, right?
It'll be okay.
Contact.
Now, this is where things start to get a little interesting, because somebody a while ago discovered that instead of flying to each one of the towers in this mission, which is intended to take about 20 minutes on Legendary, you can actually just fly straight to the last tower and begin the end of the level. However, it's entering that last tower in an effective manner, if you will, that has proven to be quite difficult for a lot of speedrunners out there. But I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can for you. So you'll notice that I just froze the screen, and that's for a very specific reason. From the moment your screen went black at 33 seconds, the only thing that you should be touching on your controller is your left trigger. Don't aim anywhere, don't shoot anything, all the way up until you get to this point here, where the tip of your left wing has just passed this silver plate. At that point, I want you to also hold down the button that decreases your altitude. For me, it's the right bumper, but depending on your button layout, it might be something different. Regardless, you're only holding down 2 buttons now until you get to another very specific location. This, of course, is the spot that I was referring to, and you'll be able to recognize it because the bottom tip of your right wing will be in the exact center of this kind of diagonal gray rectangle here on the wall. Now, that sounds like something that might be very difficult to pick up on, but trust me, when you're speedrunning these missions, you begin to learn them and know them like the back of your hand. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I ran this mission probably 100 to 200 times before I broke this record. So, picking up on something small like this really isn't difficult whatsoever. But once you're in this position, all you have to do is immediately aim your reticle towards the entrance of the tower, tilt your Pelican, and then hook your way through the entrance. You then want to exit the Pelican as close to the window as possible in order to limit the amount of time it takes to jetpack through it. And then at that point, you're just in an all-out sprint to get to the loading zone that happens to be at the doorway. Now, you'll notice that I got to this loading zone at exactly 1 minute and 53 seconds. And that was a big indicator that told me that I was on world record pace. And if I'm being honest with you, anything that's slower than that is going to be very difficult to make up for later in your run. But at this point, go ahead and jetpack jump into the gravity lift here. I don't know if it actually saves a few frames, but I do it anyway, regardless. And once you're actually in that gravity lift, I pull my Spartan to the very back of it. And I use the aiming reticle of your assault rifle in order to line myself up in the middle. I find that this helps position me better for the trick that we're about to attempt. This one specifically is probably my most hated, just simply due to the fact that I was never quite able to nail it consistently. I mean, if I'm being honest, I probably only got this jump off maybe 1 out of every 5 or 6 attempts. So, needless to say, it was quite frustrating for me. But let's go ahead and put it in slow motion here. So obviously, you're going to want to immediately turn around at the top of the gravity lift and hook around the corner of this little catwalk here. Now, you have to jump off of this platform at a very precise, perfect angle. It sucks, I know, but you just have to do it, okay? You have to run right over top the outside corner edge of this black hexagon that you see kind of indented into the floor. And you also have to be aiming at this little gray sliver that's on the inside of this kind of shaded area on the wall. And if you manage to line yourself up well enough, you then just sprint forward and you hold down the jetpack button right as you think you're going to be stepping over that top left corner of the hexagon. So I'm going to go ahead and rewind it into the previous grav lift so you guys can, see it again for yourselves. And I do have to mention that what's happening here is the bridge that's in front of you is kind of transforming, and there's a piece of that bridge that is swinging upwards and smacking you across the room. Now, when this happens and you bounce off the first wall, I recommend that you use your jetpack just a little bit because there happens to be an invisible spawn barrier that if you're low enough, your feet will actually touch it and trigger the spawn of an elite, a few grunts, and also 2 hunters, which if you trigger that spawn, your run is completely over. So definitely use your jetpack a little bit, get across there, and get to the next grav lift. Now, as we make our way towards the top here, you want to hold forward and begin sprinting kind of at an angle to your left. And I personally wait till my Spartan kind of dips off the ledge a little bit before I jump. I found that this helps me get to the Banshee just a tad bit quicker, which even if it only saves, just a few frames, that can make all of the difference when determining whether or not you break a record. So that's why I decided to mention it. But if you'll notice, I decided to again freeze frame here, and that's because I want to point out something that's super important. As you make your way towards the doorway at the end of this bridge, you want to exit your Banshee in a way that'll land you immediately behind this wall right here. This is essentially doing 2 separate things. Number 1, it's mitigating some of the incoming damage in the process of you exiting the Banshee and landing on the ground. But number 2, it's allowing you to pick up some momentum as you begin sprinting through the doorway. Taking a look at that, I do have to mention you don't need to use your jetpack as you make your way through it. I do it just a little bit in the attempt to avoid some of the projectiles that are coming in, but again, you don't have to. And at this point, you're basically just sprinting towards the console that you eventually insert Cortana into, which triggers a relatively short dialogue scene.
Fire central net. They're mine.
Now to imprison them!
What are you doing?
I can't resist his Prometheus! Like thunder falsely imprisoned me!
Chief,
The ship's online. They're leaving.
I'm sorry. I don't know what...
Track those liches.
So obviously this is the end of the mission, but I do have one last trick up my sleeve, and this is pretty damn cool. You'll notice that I'm crouching on this lift in order to get under the window as fast as possible. And once I do, I turn to the right, and right before I hit the ground, I begin sprinting and jump at the same time. This is going to push you forward and actually bounce you off an invisible barrier to ever so slightly drop you over the lip of the platform. Now, I'm doing this because in testing, I actually found that the invisible barrier that triggers the end of the mission is actually a shorter distance underneath the platform than it is out on the side. Now, I don't know how necessarily helpful this is, but you guys know I'm just trying to save a few frames in order to do this thing. and somehow it worked. So, look, man, there's the end of the level. I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in, because just getting the numbers 409 that you currently see on your screen took so much patience and determination. Like, dude, I was losing my mind because I knew I could do it. I was just struggling. You guys know the grind, baby. Anyway, be sure to check out haloruns.com if you want to get much more engaged with the Halo speedrun community, or if you just want to learn some more information on it. Comment below, let me know what you thought of it, click that thumbs up button, share the video with your friends, and if you're digging the content, then feel free to subscribe. But I'll see everybody here in a couple of days. Keep living that life, because that is what thugs do. I'm out of here, guys. Take it easy.